Hello again, it's Rob with Perfect Spiral Capital, and we're again back into our Nelson's Principles series where we're talking about the 6 different principles that Nelson Nash laid out for becoming your own banker. And we're talking not only about how they apply to the infinite banking concept, but also how they could apply in our own lives. The third principle that Nelson laid out in the book was don't steal the peas. Or, as it may be said a different way, make sure to pay yourself back. I think this is one that trips up a lot of people and one they don't necessarily think about because number one, we are not taught to control the banking system or control the banking function in our lives. And what does that look like? Well, this principle really comes from pages 15 and 16 in Becoming Your Own Banker. This is with the grocery store example. What this really means is we don't want to be stealing from ourselves. We want to make sure that we're doing business honestly. And when we think about the banking function in our lives, that would mean we're making sure that we pay ourselves back. Let's use an example of somebody who was paying cash for a vehicle. If they were saving up cash for a vehicle, and let's say it was $30,000, and they were going to just pay in cash up front for it. Now, an honest banker wouldn't simply just resave or pay themselves back the money that they spent, the $30,000. They would look at the market interest rate that was being charged at the time that they purchased the vehicle. They would also pay themselves back the interest into their account. Most people do not do that, and most people aren't even thinking about that. But that's really what's going on when we think about this infinite banking concept, is making sure we're paying ourselves back on that interest that may have been utilized. Now, in our case, and when I say our case, I mean using the infinite banking concept, we're not simply paying cash because everything in life is financed. And that means giving up the future interest that could have been earned on cash, or you're paying interest to a third party. In our case, what we're doing is creating a store of value for our money that not only stores the value, but it has a guaranteed level of growth that's built into the process. And then we're leveraging that money to purchase all the different things that we need to in our lives. So we're also financing. And then when we're paying ourselves back, we are also paying back that level of interest, the market rate of interest, or even above. And what's happening there is we are strengthening and building that financing system because the money then becomes available to use again as soon as it's paid back. Another thing to think about in this principle is valuing our own capital above someone else's capital. This one is a little trickier for people new to the concept to understand. Those in business tend to understand this a little bit easier because they've probably heard of the EVA concept or the economic value added concept. And what that means is that we're valuing our own capital as much or higher than what we would a third party's. When we leverage our own capital, we should ensure that we are at least accounting for that market rate of interest or beyond anytime it's being utilized. So going back to the cash example I said before, if we're not properly doing that, you're not valuing your capital at the level that you likely should be, because it is yours. It's your hard-earned money that you're utilizing. So why not value it at least what a bank would charge you for those funds? In the part of being an honest banker, not stealing the peas, what we're talking about is valuing our own capital at a much higher level than what we would at a third party. When we take out a policy loan and we repay ourselves, we're not going to repay simply at the market rate of interest. We're probably going to pay at least that, if not more. And then that difference, or the level of difference that we pay in terms of those interest rates, we're going to put that in as paid up additions, and we're going to fully continue to expand the natural system or the banking system that we've set up for ourselves. In doing so, we're only going to benefit ourselves and our next generation in the process. The banking system is going to grow. It's going to generate more dividends. It's going to generate more cash value growth. There's lots of different advantages to doing it that way, in addition to the funds becoming available to you again and at a higher level. The other part that ties into this concept a little bit is simply control. You have the control to determine how to repay yourself. Perhaps that's monthly. Perhaps it's quarterly. Perhaps it is on an annual basis. Your financial situation is different than it is for me. So that being said, you have the control to repay yourself in a way that makes the most sense for you. So while don't steal the peas at first sounds like a very simple concept, it's a mindset that we have to ensure is present in everything that we do. We don't want to simply think about our own system and our own capital as something we can just take from. We want to look at it as a situation of, if I truly value the money that I earn, how can I ensure that it's going to grow and do the things that I want it to do if I'm simply stealing it out the back door and I'm not taking the time to repay myself and repay the system? So many people miss out on that, and so many people do not understand that everything in life is financed. One of the things to think about when it comes to the process of becoming your own banker and this primary principle of not stealing the peas, we have to think about it in the context of building a business. If we're building a business and we want it to be profitable, if we're giving things away at wholesale prices, whether that's to ourselves out the back door or to friends or family or what have you, what that typically would mean in this case is, if we're not properly charging ourselves at least the market rate of interest or even a higher, making any sort of purchases, whether that's with cash, whether that's with using a policy loan, we are actually hurting ourselves. We're hurting the bank because we're missing out on creating a more profitable structure in which we are only going to benefit. And that's really the context of this concept of not stealing the peas. It's a situation where we properly repay ourselves no matter what system we're using, and it allows us to become more profitable in the banking space in our own personal banking system. Hopefully this video was valuable for you today and you took something from it. If so, please feel free to comment. Please feel free to like and subscribe. Check out some of the other videos that are in this series as well, and we'll talk to you again soon.